time. Bleacher Report time. Now, you guys say that these are all AI generated. I'm not so sure. I applaud them. Bleacher Report's churning these bad boys out. I'm not so sure that these are AI generated, but hey, either way, it's content. It gives us something to talk about. Shout out to our man Grant Hughes. Guys, it's Grant Hughes, man. It's not AI. It's Grant. Come on, guys. We all know Grant. Come on. One question still facing every NBA team ahead of the 24-25 season. Let's talk about it. Every NBA team. Wow. The dedication. Atlanta Hawks, how much longer will the Trae era last? Man, bearded Trae is just a wild sight. I think we could get there, Trae. Bald with the beard. I think we could get to a point where we're cooking with some fire. Okay? How much longer will the Trae era last? Now, I love whenever I do these on Bleacher Report. I don't read this. I just read the headline, and then we talk about it, and I completely ignore all of this. That's just the way it is, man. That's just the way that it is. Beard Aura is definitely 5 more wins. I do kind of agree. Now, if you get the bald with that, that's an additional 5 wins. So that's 10 wins right there. Now we're talking about like a 43 to 44 win season for the Hawks. Something to consider. I mean, that's easily getting you in the play-in in the East. That's easily getting you in the play-in. That might be the 8th seed. That could very well be. Yeah, I mean, this is the question for sure. This is the question surrounding the Bucks. Well, Jokic got 5 more wins this season. Bearded Jokic is kind of crazy. I mean, we kind of went over this a couple last stream when we did the breaking down the biggest moves of the last 5 off seasons, and the Hawks are still paying out the DeJounte Murray thing. Like, they don't really have control of their own future in terms of their own draft pick. So trading Trae becomes that much more difficult because give Trae all the shit in the world that you want. He gives them a higher floor, right? Like, you're not going to be terrible with Trae on your team just because he's good enough to will you to wins. But how high is your ceiling is the question. That's really the question the Hawks have to determine. What does a Trae Young-led team, like, where could you even get? And it's, we're going on year 7 now. Boston Celtics, what does the center rotation look like? Is this like one of the sneaky, we're in January and February and the Celtics are like the 3 seed, and it's like, dude, they need a center so bad. Is this like a sneaky thing? I think Trae would be great with Miami alongside Bam. Yeah. I could see that. But Trae in that Miami system defensively sticks out like a sore thumb. But they've had Hero and they've had Rozier now. Like, I think they're going to be fine too. But I could see it where, like, KP's out for a while to start the season. We know that. How long? We're not sure. But we know he's going to miss time. And it's Horford, who's old. And then it gets to Cornette and Tillman, who are fine, but not really what you would associate at like a championship winning team starting center rotation. Unless they want to do some variation of like a small ball thing. I don't even know what that would look like, though. But, Cornette and Tillman are fine depth, like, emergency options. Brooklyn Nets, who will make plays? Who will score? Who will do anything on this fucking team? Anytime, I just think about the Nets. I'm like, who's doing what on this team? Like, is Cam Thomas going to shoot 30 times a game? We thought that last year, but Mikal Bridges was there. Is Cam Thomas going to shoot 30 times? Is this team going to be the most disgusting team we've ever seen? Dorian Finney-Smith, point forward. I'm here for it. The Nets will challenge for their worst record in the league, but this doesn't have to be a loss season. If Brooklyn can emphasize team play and ball movement, perhaps coaxing more facilitation from its scoring-minded guards, the rest of the roster can still make progress. That's one of the things, too, and I've talked about this in the past. There are plenty of, like, pass-first, floor general point guards out there that are dirt cheap. Plenty who aren't even in the league. If you're a team you know is going to suck, and you're trying to develop other guys that you know can't really create for themselves or can't do that why not just go pick these guys up? Is there a world where we grab Dodo at the deadline? Yeah, maybe. Charlotte Hornets, is this still LaMelo Ball's team? Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Now, you guys know I love my Charlotte Hornets. Hey, I'm a big believer in them this year. I think 7 seed is about what I'm predicting currently, with maybe a secret push to the 6 seed. Secretly. A secret push. And I'm here for it. And I'm going to be right. Like, here's the thing. Law of averages. If every single year I predict a Hornets breakout, I will be right at some point in time. And I will continue to do it until I'm correct. Okay? This is a great question, though. Is it Brandon Miller's time to shine? And if that's the case, then what does that mean? Is LaMelo cool with that? But also, let's not forget how fucking good LaMelo Ball is, man. I'm if LaMelo Ball's healthy, he's wearing ankle braces. That's actually been a big storyline this offseason, and for the Hornets specifically. LaMelo Ball is committing to wearing ankle braces. He's played 36 games 2 years ago, 22 last year. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus. Insane. I just don't want you guys to forget about LaMelo. He's 6'7". All the stuff he can do. I don't see a year 2 Brandon Miller being better than LaMelo. That would be surprising. LaMelo's tattoos give him -5 aura. Yeah. Colored tattoos are always a risk, man. Tattoos with color are just risky. They're risky stuff. Chicago Bulls, can they get anything for Zach LaVine? Is this really the question for the Bulls? I don't know. I feel like the question for the Bulls is, can Josh Giddey be the guy? And I know I circle back to the Josh Giddey stuff all the time, but that's the question. That is absolute. The Zach LaVine shit. Zach LaVine's not realistically a part of your future. He is in the sense that maybe you can't trade for him, so he's on your team. But he's not. The moment you can get rid of him, you're going to. Can Josh Giddey be like a legit franchise cornerstone for you? That's the question. Because you're about to have to pay him. I think Giddey's due for a contract extension in the summer. Next summer. That has to be the number one question. LaVine, if you guys remember my top 100 list going into last season, Zach LaVine was high on that list. Not again. Not again. Cleveland Cavaliers is 3rd time the charm. Yeah, obviously for the Cavs, is this core going to work? Now, the good news for them is if it doesn't, I mean, whoever you want to trade, unless they just have disaster seasons, but whoever you want to trade to sort of change things up, you should get good return for. Like, I guess if Darius Garland has another down year, his value really takes a hit. But if Darius Garland bounces back and for whatever reason you're still not good enough and you want to trade him and keep Donovan Mitchell, you can get good value for Darius Garland. If you want to trade Jared Allen, you could get good value for him. If you want to go crazy and trade Mobley, you could get good value for him. Or Donovan Mitchell even. So I feel like they're actually in a pretty good spot. I don't know if they're like real contenders, but they're not in a terrible spot. Dallas Mavericks, will they miss Derrick Jones Jr.? So, watching back all of Luka's assists, that video's dropping Thursday, by the way. Me talking about Luka's playmaking. There's going to be a noticeable change in terms of athleticism. Especially, a lot of Luka's hit-ahead passes were to Josh Green. A ton of them were. A huge chunk of them were to Josh Green. There were a lot of Derrick Jones Jr. cuts on the baseline lobs. A lot of Derrick Jones Jr. leak outs. So the Mavs are going to look a little bit different. This is why I've pushed back against you guys who are like, why are people so disrespectful for the Mavericks? They're so much better. I'm like, well, we think they're better, and I'm confident they're better, but we're not 100% sure yet. They've lost some athleticism. Okay, they have lost some athleticism. They've lost some defense. If you just think about how the rotations are going to be. Now that's, losing some athleticism and not throwing as many lobs doesn't necessarily mean much, right? And it was kind of interesting when Josh Green got injured, had that ankle sprain against the Thunder, which I thought was an Achilles tear, famously. And his time on the floor just kind of shrunk a little bit. There were still leak outs and there were still hit aheads, but they were to the bigs. The bigs were running the floor, and PJ had some moments too. So, all in all, I think the Mavericks addressed more important areas of need rather than athleticism. Like shooting was something that absolutely had to be addressed, and it was. And obviously, the overwhelming majority of Mavs lobs go to the big. But here's the thing. If your hard-hitting question is whether or not you're going to miss Derek Jones Jr., who you signed for the minimum last summer, I think you're feeling pretty good. Like, you're doing pretty good. When we get in the Grimes video, at some point. There's still 2 months. Denver Nuggets, are the kids ready? Scary question to ask. Scary question to ask. Thank God Josh Giddey's not on this. Brown, Watson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson. Oh, man. Do any of those guys jump out to you? One of those guys has to step up and be a starter. Like, one of those guys has to be a good starter for you. And then you need at least one or two of those guys to be good bench players. I'm worried. I really am. I really am worried about them. The more I think about it, the less confident I get. Yeah, strong. I mean, they could be good. Detroit Pistons. Who will emerge as Cade Cunningham's top sidekick? I like this question, and here's why. It assumes correctly that Cade is that guy, which he is. I can't wait to be right about it. I cannot wait to be right about Cade Cunningham, really. The most skeptical observers might balk at the notion that Cade Cunningham is at a level where it even makes sense to wonder about the identity of his top running mate. Yeah! Hey! My guy Grant, man, we see eye to eye. It's a good question. Who's going to be the number 2? Ron Holland just got drafted. I doubt it's him immediately. Paul Reed. I doubt it's B-ball Paul. Jalen Duren. Man, you guys, I do love Jalen Duren. A lot of the defensive stuff with him is scary. Jaden Ivey, who has looked good at times for sure. I'm worried about him being an off-ball guy next to Cade because of the shooting stuff. And the same thing for Sar Thompson. Although, man, I'm buying in. This AI knows ball. I'm buying in more and more and more on the Thompson twins as time goes on. I've just been quietly buying up stock, which is funny because I wasn't really that high on them going into the draft. They've got a lot of things that they need to iron out, but I'm quietly buying stock up on the Thompson twins, just saving it. Tim Hardaway Jr. obviously is an option for this. Can Tim Hardaway Jr. average 25 points? Golden State Warriors, does Jonathan Kuminga finally make the leap? The year will be 2031. Jonathan Kuminga will be 30 years old, and we will be asking the same question. We will be asking if Jonathan Kuminga can land you as a megastar in a trade. These are all questions we will be asking. Warriors fans think this guy's worth the same max contract that guys like Franz Wagner and Scotty Barnes got this offseason. I'm telling you right now, no, he's not. Okay? No, he isn't. Hopefully Kuminga can find some consistency, though, this season. Houston Rockets, Şengün, Green, neither or both. So I think the Rockets have their guys. I've thought about it a little bit more. I've talked about it all offseason. The Rockets have so many guys, but do they have a guy? I don't think it's either of these dudes. I'm just going to be real. Jalen Green's far too inconsistent. He has a lot of flash plays. I think he can be a good player in the NBA, but the guy on your team, it feels unlikely at this point. Şengün, to be 1,000% honest with you, I struggle to think. I think people call him Jokic light. I think Sabonis. They don't play directly, like they're not directly comparable in play styles. They're a little bit similar, but similar in the sense that if Şengün's your offensive hub, is he efficient enough? Is he good enough for that to have a ton of success? With Jokic, the answer is yes. But Jokic is one of the greatest offensive players the sport's ever seen. With Sabonis, the offense is good. When it tightens up, the offense isn't as good, and the defense is bad. And Şengün took a step forward defensively this past season, and I would say Şengün's upside defensively is higher than Sabonis for sure. Although Sabonis, did get Defensive Player of the Year votes. Şengün is good, don't get me wrong, but if the idea is who's like a guy we can build a championship team around as the number one guy, I don't know if it's either of these. Amin Thompson gets a jump. No, I'm just saying, Amin Thompson gets a jump shot. That's a guy. That's the guy. That is the guy. That is the guy. I'm buying up Thompson twin stock, man. Do you have to answer this question this season? Honestly, I guess. What's the contract situation? Are they up for contracts? I'm assuming Jalen Green probably is. I don't know if this is like that pressing of a thing that you have to find out this season, but maybe it is. Maybe you want to figure it out. Yep, Şengün is going to get a fat fucking contract in the offseason. Probably the max, if I had to guess. Jalen Green's contract. Now that'll be interesting. That will be interesting. Is he going to get the max? No way, right? Unless he has a great season. I agree. Şengün as a max is kind of disgusting, but Jalen Green is interesting. That one's interesting. Did you forget about Dylan Dog Brooks? They're going to be... Actually, the Rockets are really interesting because remember that Fred VanVleet deal? The team options for year 3. So Fred VanVleet might have a year left as well. Şengün and Jalen Green due for contracts. Ooh, they're interesting. Jalen Green had an insane month last season. Yeah, but the March super performances always trick people. And it tricks me as well. It always does. I did watch the Arsenal-Aston Villa game. Come on, you Gunners. Indiana Pacers. Are Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker trade chips? Ben Math. He needs a good year, man. He needs a good year. Was injured last year. Had a great rookie season. Finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting that year. Finished 8th in Defensive Player of the... Or not Defensive Player of the Year. That would be surprising. Finished 8th in 6th Man of the Year voting. But there's just a lot of stuff working against him defensively, offensively. Is he a guy that, like, is connective enough, if that makes sense? Doesn't really seem like it. Jarris Walker. You guys know I loved him coming out of the draft. He's going to be good. Didn't really get a chance to shine at all last season. And I don't know, just looking at their roster construction, I mean, they bring back Siakam, obviously, and then they bring back Obi Toppin. It's kind of a struggle to see where Jarris Walker fits into the equation again. I still think Jarris Walker is going to be a really good player. LA Clippers. Is Chris Dunn shooting legit? Oh, man. So similar to what I said about the Mavericks earlier, if the biggest question is, can you replace Derrick Jones Jr., you feel pretty good. If your biggest question is Chris Dunn shooting legit, you're fucking bad. Dude, the Clippers might be really bad, man. Their defense is going to be good. They're going to be really good defensively. But, man, they're a Kawhi knee sprain away. Knock on glass. A James Harden hamstring strain away. From just being abysmal. Can you say that was a 2-0 type game? Villa deserved the W. I was a little bit nervous in the first 60 to 70 minutes, but once Arsenal got their goal, they were pretty much in control of the game. It was, I think Arsenal definitely was a little bit lucky to get out of there with a win. But hey, that's the game, man. That's why we love football. That's what us Brits call soccer, by the way. That's why we love it. Los Angeles Lakers, is a trade on the horizon? All right, that's just evergreen. You can say this every fucking day about the Lakers or any LeBron team. Maybe. Is that trading LeBron to the Mavs? Maybe. Memphis Grizzlies, what's the plan at center? Well, it feels pretty obvious. Zach Edey, they're throwing him in the mix. Brandon Clark's coming back. And they're really hoping that Edey can be good in the NBA, at the NBA level. We'll see. From this camera angle makes it look like he's taller than 10 feet. Makes it look like he's a 12-foot human being. Miami Heat, can Jimmy Butler stay on the floor? I'm going to go ahead and spoil that for you. Probably not. Yeah, I've seen the Luka to the Lakers thing. I mean, the Lakers, they thrive off delusion. We know that. So Jimmy, with the Heat, 58 games in 2019-2020. Obviously, that was a shortened season. 52 games the next year, obviously a shortened season as well. Then 57 games, 64 games, 60 games. So just by the new rules of how you can qualify for awards, he would have never qualified for an award with the Heat. I have no idea. The Heat are just losing so much luster. And also, Jimmy's going to be 35 years old. Was still good when he was on the court. Don't think he's as good as he used to be, but it's not only can Jimmy Butler stay on the floor, but can Jimmy Butler be active, engaged, and really trying hard when he's on the court? That's the real question. Milwaukee Bucks, is Gary Trent Jr. up for the defensive challenge? It's a great question. I long have believed that Gary Trent Jr. is an overrated defender back when Portland Trailblazers fans were saying how great of a defender he was years ago. I've long believed that he's a tad overrated as a defender, and this feels... He's better than Malik Beasley, for sure. Okay? So, an upgrade there. But this feels similar-esque, where it's like, he's got it. Gary Trent Jr. will be the guy who defends the other team's best players. We're good. And by January, February, it's like, fuck. This is tough. This is a toughie. The toughie. The Heat are the perfect next Luka team. Minnesota Timberwolves, can Rob Dillingham be ready right away? Kind of similar to the Mavs. If that's their number one pressing question, they're in pretty good shape. They can survive if Dillingham's not that good immediately, and he just has a few flash moments here or there. They can definitely survive. I agree, probably not. He's just too small right now. But if he's immediately good and contending for Rookie of the Year, that's really big for them. I just question it. I question this. The size and everything is just... What is he, 150? New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, they better hope so, because who knows how much longer Mike Conley has. How will the Brandon Ingram situation resolve? I can't believe this hasn't been... This is still going on. That was one of the things when we did Slightly Unplugged. I was so convinced Brandon Ingram would be traded. So convinced that Brandon Ingram would be on a new team. And was shocked to learn that he was not. The Pelicans have a lot of questions, as per usual. Is Zion going to stay healthy and stay on the floor? It sucks because it actually feels like you got a pretty good Zion season last year in terms of how often he was on the court. 70 games, but then I don't even mean to laugh, but it's just it feels like you get lucky regular season wise with Zion's health, and then he gets hurt in the play-in tournament and misses the entire playoffs. Misses your entire postseason series. Has yet to play in a playoff game. I mean, the real question for them is who the fuck is playing center? Like, that's the real question. Maybe that ties into the Brandon Ingram, that maybe you can flip Brandon Ingram for another center, but you look around the league, who is that? New York Knicks, is there enough center depth? I mean, that's the obvious question for them. We've talked about that before. Oklahoma City Thunder, what's the closing lineup? Yeah, that's the question for them. It will vary, I have to imagine. They have a ton of optionality. They need shooting. They can make that work. They want, the rangy wing defenders out there. They can make that work. If they need the bigs out there with Chet and Hartenstein, they can make that work. Orlando Magic, did they add enough playmaking? So who did they add? KCP, Tristan da Silva? Was playmaking the real big pressing need? I feel like it was more shooting. Because Paolo and Franz for wings, not bad playmakers at all. You lose Fultz, who never healthy, wasn't that good last year. Yeah, Suggs not a great creator for a point guard. Respect Tristan. Yeah, I'm respecting Tristan. Philadelphia 76ers, can Joel Embiid be healthy when it matters? That's the only question that matters for the Sixers. That is the only question that means anything for them. They'll be good in the regular season. They'll make the playoffs. Will Embiid have 6 different things or 5? That's the question. We can deal with 5 different ailments bothering Joel Embiid. Once we get to 6, that's when we really start to have problems. Phoenix Suns, can the defense do it again? Do what again? Were they good defensively last year? They were 12th in defensive efficiency last year? Huh. Interesting. Now, my initial guess would be no. My initial guess would be no. That actually surprises me. 76 games for Nurkic last year, career high. It was the first time he played over 60 games since 2018, 2019. So, feels unlikely you're getting that again. KD was 75 games. That's the first time he's played over 60 games since 2018, 2019. If Ryan Dunn pans out, then yes. This is always hilarious to me. Ryan Dunn came out the draft. He might be one of the worst offensive prospects we've seen. That's what draft people were saying. That he might be one of the worst offensive prospects in quite some time. Great defensively. Guys, those guys aren't really playable. Those guys aren't really playable at high levels. They get played off the court. It's really hard offensively if you have a nothing out there. It's really, really, really hard. Portland Trailblazers, will the real Scoot Henderson please stand up? He was okay towards the end of the season. I agree. They need a big Scoot year. Not necessarily big, but you need to see some things you're like, okay. All right. There's the number 3 overall pick that people thought should have been number 2. There he is. We found him. We're good. I would say too, can we get a somewhat healthy Shane Sharp season? And can we see, dude, that's a guy that got, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was kind of a popular refrain on Twitter to say that Shane Sharp looked a lot like Kobe fucking Bryant. That was a thing. That was a real thing. Can we get a healthy Shane Sharp, and can we get something out of him? Sacramento Kings. Will the whole be less than the sum of the parts? So, this phrase, I see it all the time. It takes a little bit for me to understand what they're saying. I am stupid. Thanks to the trade that essentially swapped out Harrison Barnes for DeMar DeRozan, the Sacramento Kings are more talented than they were at the time last year. When they put their top 5 players on the floor, they'll have an abundance of creators and scorers. That's true. The twofold question is whether or not all that offensive firepower actually makes any sense together, and whether it'll give back so much on defense that the offensive games won't matter. That's exactly where I'm at with them. It is funny. Like, the record is pretty much the same as it was 2 years ago when they were the 3 seed, but the West wasn't a complete and total fuckfest like it was 2 years ago. I do question the fit. It's like DeMar's this mid-range operator. Sabonis likes to operate around the elbow as the hub. Fox had a good shooting season last year, but throughout his career hasn't been like this great three-point shooter. I don't know. It's a weird. It's weird. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this ends up being a little bit funkier. DeMar spacing will allow defenders to cut him off earlier. Keegan Murray is a slept-on piece here. Because he's just quietly been really good his first 2 years in the league. And if he can take like more strides next year, be around 40% from 3, with good defense, that is really the big difference maker. What are Bias' thoughts on the 4 years, $136 million for a CD? I feel like that's worth it. I mean, I don't know. Can Sabonis raise his elbows per game? That'll be tough. He's led the league 6 years running. I don't know how you improve off of where he's been at in terms of elbows thrown per game. Like, it's just mathematically, is it even possible? That's what I'm wondering, at least. Chris Murray's on the Blazers. Player's choice guy thinks Keegan can average 27. 27, huh? Like this upcoming season or in his career? I don't know if he gets the opportunity to get to 27 points per game. Keegan's a good player, though. I mean, just felt like there's not that much of a ceiling for the Kings. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. San Antonio Spurs, what new dimensions will Wemby showcase? Yeah, the question for the Spurs is, will Wemby be like a top 5 player in the league next year or like a top 15? Like, that's it. If it's top 15, if he's like the 14th, 15th, All-NBA third team, you're not going to be very good. If he's like top 5-ish in like sneaky MVP discussions, then that's interesting. But hey, he's going to the 4th dimension. Wemby will be like All-NBA second team and Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that would be so fucking crazy. Given health, what is a disappointing season for Wemby? I mean, if Wemby's offensive game doesn't really improve, like if he's still inefficient from 3 and settles for a lot of threes and it doesn't look like he has like a post game or really like comfortable inside, I think that'll be a little disappointing. Will Wemby cause a Luka situation where he makes them too good to tank but not good enough to win a championship? The problem is, though, is the Mavericks were already up against it. They traded a first to move up and get Luka. So they didn't have that to build around. Then they panicked, and they saw how good Luka was immediately and traded the future, basically, for Kristaps. And that didn't pan out. The Spurs have, like, a ton of assets. Yeah, and I doubt they panicked. They could have panicked this offseason. Toronto Raptors, are we sure they chose a direction? Yeah, they chose a direction. They're paying Scotty Barnes. They think Scotty Barnes is their franchise. And they like Emmanuel Quickley and they like RJ Barrett. That's their direction. But it does kind of feel like they'll be middle of the pack. But maybe for them, they don't need like another star. Like maybe they just think Scotty's that guy. That's what it feels like. They could have traded OG for draft picks and just been like, we're going to tank. But they traded him for like players that helped them win now. And quickly in RJ. The Pirtle trade was bad. It's not too late to become a Chelsea Blue. Sorry, mate. Utah Jazz, will they pull the plug again? They already have. They already have. The plug's been pulled. The plug has been pulled. Jason Kidd cameo. What would the plug being pulled look like at this point? Clarkson and Sexton getting traded? Utah seems to want it both ways. Does it, though? I mean, it feels like they're going to be bad. Washington Wizards. Who's ready for a Bobcat? Wait, what? It's rare to see an NBA team rank dead last on both ends of the floor, but the Washington Wizards are built to be exceptionally bad. The Charlotte Bobcats are the gold standards, finishing 30th in both offensive and defensive efficiency during the 66-game lockout-shortened 2011-2012 season. Wow. Damn. All right, so in my brain, the Wizards are better to me than the Nets. Like, I think the Nets could be approaching the Bobcat status, honestly. Like, I think they're going to be fucking terrible. The Wizards... I mean, they'll be bad. Don't get me wrong. Maybe they trade Kuzma midseason. But in order for them to be that bad, Sar will have to be a 0 immediately. Or not even a 0, a negative. To where he's actually hurts you when he's on the court, which is possible based off what we've seen. Jordan Poole's season last year was not an anomaly, and he just sucks now. Possible, I guess. Kuzma's checked the fuck out and traded. Possible. I don't know. Now that I think about it, the Wizards are going to be horrible. Oh, man. The Wizards are actually going to be terrible. But then there's also a world where Sar's not as bad as he looked in Summer League. Poole has a bounce-back resurgence season. It's a Cam versus Poole chucker-off. That's true. True. Kuzma is going the political route. Kuzma's wasting his career there. Well, it seems like he wants to get into politics. So actually, he's pretty well built for it. Shit versus Dookie. Yeah, they should want to be as terrible as possible. And there will be a mean tank battle. Not only Cooper Flag, but this is a pretty good draft class in general. Like, there will be a tank battle at the end of the season. Teams will shut it the fuck down. Absolutely.